there, it's Christy with the Chirp YouTube channel. Welcome! I am doing my next segment in our Developmental Keys series, and this piece of the puzzle is going to be about behavior. I do a lot of videos about behavior. It is probably second in my list as far as videos that are well liked and appreciated by parents especially, but also by professionals in the field, because behavior is the thing that means that we have difficulty with a child. And that's because behavior that makes us annoyed or frustrates us is a signal that a child is not getting enough support. And of course, if a child isn't getting enough support, the behavior comes, we're going to be thinking about it because we got hit, because the child bit someone, because the child threw a chair across the room, or tried to escape from our classroom, or only hides under the table. Whatever the behavior is that we're seeing that we wish we weren't seeing is a sign to us. It's a sign that we need to do something different. And that is always uncomfortable because we know something needs to change. As we start thinking about behavior together today, let me recommend that you start thinking of a challenging behavior as a lack of skills. Kids don't need to do challenging behavior if they have the skills to stay calm and regulated, if they have all of the sensory support that they need, if they have all the communication skills that they need. We see far less challenging behavior in kids who are developing appropriately because they have the ability to express themselves, to keep themselves calm, to communicate with other people about their feelings and all of that. It's our kids who have developmental delays who express the most through their behavior because that's what works for them when nothing else will. It's because they have a lack of skills that they need to demonstrate this challenging behavior. Behavior is a way of communication, and we need to recognize that they're communicating something through that behavior. I am going to go on to discuss how to prevent challenging behaviors and tantrums/meltdowns. But first I want to talk a little bit about what to do when those challenging behaviors occur. Let's assume that it's going to be a meltdown. I talk a lot about tantrums and meltdowns on this channel, as you probably know if you've been watching me for a while, and I always differentiate between a tantrum and a meltdown. A tantrum is when a child is trying to manipulate the adult through her behavior. She doesn't get something she wants, therefore she falls on the ground and kicks and screams until you give her what she wants, which you should never do, by the way, because that causes more tantrums.
Get down. Get down. You push your pendants on the floor. That's no good.
A meltdown, on the other hand, is when a child is so dysregulated that he falls completely to pieces and no longer has the ability to hold himself together. It's no longer a matter of self-control at that point. The child has completely fallen apart and is no longer in charge of himself at this point. In a meltdown, the child is not trying to manipulate you or to watch you out of the corner of his eye in order to see if you're paying attention to his huge meltdown. The child is not able to do any of those things because he is not in control of himself. When a child is in a meltdown, the only thing to do is to help the child recover. That is our job as the semi-calm adult in the situation. It's going to be different for each child. We need to show compassion in every circumstance. In some situations, compassion is stepping back, providing less input, maybe not using any language at all in order to not ramp up the child more, and perhaps using some sort of a calming phrase like, "It will be okay. You'll be fine. It's almost over. You're doing great." A lot of times in my videos, I recommend that you have a catchphrase that you use with some sort of exciting or especially fun activity that your child likes to do that you can offer as a reward for recovering from the meltdown. You might say, when you're done, we can play gears, or we'll build a marble run, or when you're done, we can go out and play in the snow. If you have snow where you live, sadly, I don't ever get any snow, but maybe you do, and that's a fun experience for every child. It's magical. So you might use calming phrases, not too often, maybe once a minute, maybe every 30 seconds, however often you feel is appropriate. And you might also throw in there one of these reward type phrases to remind the child and the child's body that recovering from this meltdown is going to be a good thing. No one likes to be out of control, so he's not pretending to be out of control so that he can manipulate you. Remember, this is a meltdown. He's out of control because he can't hold himself together any longer. As he gets better at recovering, the recovery will take less and less long. So to recap, when a child is in a meltdown, we back off a little bit. We offer soothing words and phrases, but not too many. And we use some sort of a catchphrase to help the child recover quicker, to make recovery seem like a really good goal to reach, something that the child maybe doesn't get to do every day. Now, if a child is having a tantrum because she wants something that it's not time for, or you're not going to give her because it's ridiculous, then we just have to not negotiate with the terrorist. That's super hard when your child is the terrorist and you just want a moment's respite from all of the nagging. But the more you give in to that sort of tantrumy, demanding, entitled behavior, the more of that is going to occur, because kids will do whatever works to get what they want. They're not doing it because they're bad people. They're doing it because they're little machines that figure out what works, and then they do more of that. So if every time they go to Target, you say, no candy, she throws a tantrum, you get her the candy, she's gonna throw more tantrums because it worked. So if it's a tantrum, you need to be aware that your behavior is going to dictate how many tantrums come in the future. I know that's hard, but you can do it. You are brave. I know that plan for handling meltdowns seems very simple, but really it is the only thing that is going to help a child recover from being dysregulated so severely. So even though it's simple, maybe that's better because it helps you to remember it, and it helps you to stay on track. If you remember, I'm here to soothe and I'm here to enable recovery. Those are your goals. Now that we have talked about what to do in a meltdown or in a tantrum, let's move forward and discuss a few of the ways that we can prevent those behaviors from occurring, because of course we would rather not have to deal with them at all. The first thing I want to recommend is that you make sure that your child is not dealing with any unmet sensory needs. This is oftentimes forgotten when we look at behavior only, because the behavior seems out of proportion with the surroundings and the situation. And we forget that the child's sensory system may be different from other children's and different from what we might expect. We need to make sure that the child's sensory needs are being met, or the child is not going to be able to stay regulated. Let's imagine that you have an itch right in the middle of your back where you can't reach, and it's just driving you crazy all the time. Imagine that that's your child with this sensory need that isn't being met. It's very distracting, and you're gonna probably have some meltdowns too if you have an itch all the time that is severe that you can't scratch. I recommend that you get an occupational therapist involved. As I always say, please make sure that is one who has a special training in the area of sensory integration. Most of them don't. Most of them deal with fine and gross motor skills, but they don't know a huge amount about sensory processing. And they need to if they're going to help your child who has a sensory need. I also should mention that I have lots and lots of videos in my sensory playlist. I'll put a link right there so you can see that. There are lots of videos in there on many different topics related to sensory issues. Please educate yourself, get a good professional on your team, and meet your child's needs so that perhaps some of these challenging behaviors might not be necessary. Let's also talk about the currency of relationships. A lot of our kids have been dealing with behavioral issues since they were very small, and their relationships with other human beings have been shaped by their behavior that seems very negative to most people. It means that kids grow up believing that they're weird, that they're unacceptable, and that people don't like them. And sometimes that may be the case. People might not like them if they are having meltdowns all the time, or if they are aggressive. It's hard to like kids who bite you, or who kick you, or who spit on you. And kids can feel that. Some of the most effective behavior management techniques are loving on a child when they're doing things that you appreciate, and loving on children when they're doing things that you don't appreciate. Imagine that you are a person with a bunch of baggage. Maybe you've made a lot of bad decisions in your life. Maybe you have done some really unacceptable things and you know it, and you're embarrassed about that, ashamed. But someone comes into your life, or one of your family members who's already in your life, continually showers you with affection, with praise, with good words about how worthy you are and how valuable you are and how precious you are to this other person, and also to God, if you're a God-believing person. Imagine how that would feel to be unconditionally accepted, to be valued for your personhood and for your uniqueness, in spite of the fact that you did lots of things that were unacceptable. For me, this is the core message of Jesus coming to earth. This time of year, I think about that a lot, because humanity did choose not to be part of what God had planned for us. We chose something else. And Jesus came to reconnect us and to point us back to what we were meant to be, and to give us a renewed opportunity to have a relationship with God. And I think that's a beautiful message. And we need to pass that on to the people in our lives. I can still be loving and gentle and compassionate even while I am dealing with behaviors that are aggressive, that are mean, that maybe even hurt my feelings. And obviously it's very hard to do. And yet that's our calling when we're dealing with any other human being, but especially children who are trying to learn how to manage themselves and stay calm. So, in moments where the child is doing something I really appreciate, I verbally say how proud I am that you are sitting at the table. I'm so pleased that you are choosing to be such a good friend today. Look at that. You just let Jack play trains right beside you. That's very nice of you. You're being very kind and gentle today. Thank you so much for that. I give the kids a lot of physical affection. I touch them on the shoulder, I kiss them on the head, I pat their hair, I pat them on the back, I give them hugs, I tell them I love them all the time. Sometimes I kiss them on the cheek, which is dangerous if you're wearing red lipstick. I show them a lot of attention in a lot of different ways. Some of my kids like physical touch more than others, and so obviously the ones who don't like it, I don't pat them on the shoulder, I don't touch them on the head, I give them more bubble space. But I have one child particular who really benefits from just being touched by a human being who loves him. And so that's part of my job when I spend time with him, is reminding him how precious he is. Now, there will be times when these children are doing things we wish they weren't doing. And it's very hard to say, I am proud of you. I know it's tough to control yourself. You can do it. I believe in you. I know it's hard to sit at the table and you'd rather be under the table. I know that you can do this. You can be brave and you can sit in your chair instead. I actually did that one time when a kid was under the table. And in 30 seconds, he was out and he was sitting in his chair and he was being a good example for the other kids. Now, this can only happen with that particular child when his sensory needs are being met. And for him, he can't handle a lot of lights and spinning noise. And our music time was very spinny and noisy. And I had to stop turning the lights off and turning our disco ball on in that particular classroom for this particular student, because he got dysregulated all the time with that much activity going on with his eyeballs. We finally figured it out, and now he's much more capable of staying calm and regulated through the time that he has with us. So it does mean that some of our kids miss out on that little more exciting music and movement time, but if it enables this kid to not be aggressive and to not be out of control, it's worth it to us. It's completely worth it. We still play the music, we just don't turn the lights off, we don't turn the mirror ball on, and we have a much more enjoyable time. As I'm talking about this, you can see that there is some element of a bank account that I'm trying to set up with these students. I'm trying to invest positive comments, positive affirmations in these kids, because everything that is hard for them in the world is like them paying money out of their bank account. And if they don't have any money in, they can't give any out. And everything I ask them to do that's challenging, everything their family asks them to do that's challenging, even sitting at the table for story time sometimes, can be a withdrawal from their bank account. So I need to make sure there's something in there so they can have something to give when something difficult is required. Knowing that the people around me love me and are proud of me makes me want to be worthy of their appreciation. It makes me feel free to do what I need to do hard things because I'm accepted and known and valued. That's what I think relationships are supposed to be, healthy ones. Some other ways that you can do positive deposits are notes home, little texts that you send the child during the week, or the child's family, hopefully, a text photo of you doing an I love you symbol. Tell the families how well the student did. Try to not focus so much on the things you wish hadn't happened in your classroom, and try to focus a little bit more right in front of the child when the family's coming to pick him up, how proud you are that he calmed himself down, how proud you are that he said hello and used another friend's name in the class. Whatever it is that this child is working on in your classroom, talk about his successes right there in front of his family. And also in front of the other students. You might even start giving good student awards. You might have a little picture of cleaning up or singing or being a good friend or a good helper or using words, and you might hand those out at snack time. Maybe each of your students gets a reward every week for doing something great. When kids see other kids being rewarded for things, they think, I could do that, and then they try to do it and often succeed. To help control challenging behavior, we also want to have a predictable schedule. I know this is a lot easier in a classroom than it is in a home, but homes can still be very predictable. If you have a visual schedule, it helps a lot. I like the ones that go left to right, for you, left to right, because that is a pre-reading activity, because of course in English, words we read left to right. If your language goes up and down, then you probably want to do your schedule that way, so the kid can get in the habit of next comes this. This is what we're doing now, next comes this, next comes this. We kind of get in the habit of going left to right or up to down or whatever your language does. Take pictures of the activities that the kids might do during the day, laminate them, put them on the fridge, and then as we transition from one activity to the next, we take it off and we put it in a little bin. Kids thrive when they know what's coming next. It can decrease negative behaviors by 80%. Having only 1/5 of the meltdowns that you had before would be great. We also want to have some very simple rules. In my classroom, our rules are keep self safe, keep others safe, keep our stuff safe. Those are simple, and yet they pretty much cover every behavior that we could imagine, because if you're climbing on the table, not only are you not keeping yourself safe, you're not keeping our table safe. So that's not okay. It helps kids to be able to group things in their head as things that are okay and things that are not okay. It's also really helpful in managing challenging behaviors to try to give the child choices in every circumstance, but only appropriate choices. So if your child resists getting dressed in the morning, instead of saying, get dressed, you have no choices, get dressed, you can say, would you like to wear the pink outfit or the red outfit? They're both so pretty. Which one would you like today? Having choices helps kids, especially kids who tend to be a little obstinate, feel like they're the ones in control. They're making the choice. We have to also keep in mind that many of our kids with developmental delays, language delays, cognitive difficulties, any of these things, they often have their lives constructed for them by their families. They're in therapy this many hours a week, they go to preschool this many hours a week or regular school, they get speech therapy, occupational therapy. They're very structured. And that's not what childhood should be. Childhood should be a lot of exploration, a lot of play, a lot of building relationships with the people in one's world. When we structure a child's life that strictly, it means they really start to feel boxed in and they don't feel a lot of what we call agency, which means the ability to have an effect on one's own world, the ability to make difference, the ability to shape one's own life. When kids don't feel like they have that kind of independence and that kind of agency, their behavior often shows that they feel boxed in and they become resistant to everything. There's a little kid in my program right now, and he has so much scheduled time in his poor little childhood that it makes me sad. And he has developed a resistance to any sort of suggestion. So if we say, would you like to play sand? He'll say, no, no, no. We get the kinetic sand out, we start to show him how it is, and he loves it. And it's like that with almost everything we suggest or we recommend or we demonstrate to him. He resists, and then he loves it. And one of the reasons is because his life is very structured for him. He doesn't have a lot of say-so. And so whenever an adult says something, he assumes it's going to be something kind of unpleasant and he's not going to like it. And so every time that he does like it, it's a surprise to him. That's sad. Please don't overschedule your children like that. Even if someone tells you it's the only way your child's going to get better, it's not. Your child does need downtime. Your child needs to control part of his or her own world and own development. Yes, we need to be interacting with our child all the time. Not all the time, most of the time. Yes, we need to have professionals come and support our child's development. It does not need to be 40 hours a week or 80 hours a week. It does not need to be every moment of the child's waking day. Give your child some choices. Make sure that your child has some time away from other people bossing her around. And help your child to be as independent as possible. That really can help behavior quite a bit. Another trick when we are talking about behavior is get out of the habit of asking your child, are you ready to, or do you want to? So for example, if it's time for story, we do not say, are you ready for story? Or do you want to come sit at the table? Because our children who lead overly structured lives, who assume that whatever an adult suggests is not going to be fun, are all going to say, no. Are you ready for story? No. Do you want to come sit at the table? No. Well, what are we going to do then? Because we want children to have independence and agency. If they say no, what am I going to do? So what we say instead is, it's time for story, it's time for getting dressed, it's time to brush our teeth. It's a very good habit to get in. Change that and it will make a good difference in your life. If nothing is working for you, if your child's behavior is really, really bothering you, is throwing the family out of whack, please please get someone involved. If your child is young, I recommend a speech-language pathologist to come and help you, because speech-language pathologists who work in early childhood usually can see some of the reasons behind the behavior, not just the behavior itself. Once again, I also recommend that you find an occupational therapist, that you get some sort of a sensory evaluation done to make sure that you're not missing out on a sensory need that's not getting met that could be leading to some of those behaviors. Also, if your child is 2 years, 9 months old or older and you live in the United States, your child is eligible to get a free preschool evaluation, which means that if your child qualifies, your child would get to go to free preschool, not necessarily full-time, but free preschool to work on those areas where your child needs more help developing. Please talk to your local public school if you have concerns about that, and you can get an evaluation through them as well. And as I usually also bring up in these conversations, talk to your local Division of Developmental Disabilities. In some states, they work with the public schools. In my state, which is Arizona, they work separately, so you can have both services at the same time. Talk to your Division of Developmental Disabilities and see if your child could get an evaluation to see if you qualify for some of those services as well. Because the more people you have giving you thoughts, giving you advice, sometimes the easier it is to get an idea of which things are most likely to work, and you get more people's advice and expertise, and that can be a good thing. As always, I put a bunch of links in the information box below the video. Go down there, check it out. Make sure that you click on the links that seem helpful to you. Of course, ask me questions if they come up, and I will see you in my next video. Have a wonderful week. Bye.